everyone. I'm Chris Malika Bhadra and I welcome you all to another episode and an interesting conversation on Chai Chat and Community. The topic that I've chosen for tonight, first of all, comes from a place of deep reflection, understanding, and empowerment. It is true that a woman has been bestowed with one of the most miraculous things in life. She has the power to give birth. But does she have the final say when it comes to having a child? Or should she have the final say? We will understand this and many more throughout the conversation when I talk to my three guests for tonight. But at the outset, I would like to establish this one thing that although we are having this conversation, we do realize and understand that not a lot of women have this choice, option, and the luxury to even think of this option. And that is the reason we want to initiate the dialogue to pave a way for them to at least have a thought about this. Moving on, at this point, I would really like to introduce my guests for tonight. They are Sunobha Nair from Perth, Akshay Ahuja from Singapore, and Sritama Bhattacharya from Melbourne. Hi, guys, and a big thank you for joining me tonight on such an important topic. I can't thank you enough. Thank you for coming here. A little bit of intro about my three guests. So Akshay Ahuja is basically an IT professional. He originally is from Delhi, but now he's in Singapore. He's working there. He likes playing poker and futsal. Interesting. Sritama Bhattacharya, or Sritama D as I like to call her, she's been living in Melbourne for the last 9 years. She's working as a consulting manager in ENY, and she loves to blog, sing, and recite in free times. And Sunobha Nair, and Sunobha for me, is basically from Perth, and she's been involved in the aviation industry for as long as I can remember. All right. Thank you all for having me. Let's just kind of get diving into the conversation. I'll start with you, Sritamadi. So, the thing that I want to know from you is I want you to kind of basically set the base of this chat, right? In your opinion, why do you think we need to have this conversation about a woman's basic rights and choices, and that too more importantly in the 21st century? Sritamadi.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So, first of all, thanks for inviting me to this session. It's a very interesting topic. And why it's important? I think it's very important to discuss this in 21st century, in today's day and age, because even today, a lot of women don't know about their basic rights, don't have their basic rights, or don't know how to exercise their choices. Then the other thing is giving birth or not giving birth is a very is a life changing decision. So
Hmm.
it's a very important decision, so it involves not only you, it can involve a family and also who you are bringing into your life, right? If you are
Yeah.
planning to give birth to someone. And the third thing I would say is like abortion has been decriminalized only in 21st century. So before
Hmm.
that, it was criminal act,
Yeah.
and in South Australia, it has been. I was just reading up about it. So in South Australia, it has the act has come into effect in 2021 with all the you know clauses into it. So that's the reason I think it's very important from if you think from all the perspectives. And also like as I said, like it's a life changing decision which also includes like one needs to have the financial and mental stability
Hmm.
to be able to make such decisions. um,
Exactly.
I have actually thought of a couple of scenarios. So do you want me to talk about it, Chris, or you want to go into some other question?
Of course, go for it. Go for it, Shraddha. No, 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 go for it, Shraddha. Because your scenarios would
Okay.
help us set the foundation of the conversation moving forward. So please go for it.
Okay, thanks. So yeah, it's a couple of scenarios that I was thinking, like, let's say if it's a planned pregnancy, right? So that's like a couple or a married couple or a couple who's like in a de facto relationship. If they have decided and there's a planned pregnancy, in that case, there's no point of debate, right? So they want to give birth. So hopefully everything will go well in their life after that. And then, but when it comes to, I think when it comes to unplanned pregnancy, in that sort of situation, when someone is when a girl is married or in a de facto relationship or they don't want to have a child, that's where it actually goes into the gray territory, I think, because that's where the question arises whether the man should have the decision, should be able to decide, or the woman, or the society. You mean, I mean, we all know that there is a huge societal pressure on couples, right? So that also needs to be considered, and most of the times I know I've seen friends that they do consider that in their decision making. That's one of the criteria in their decision making exercise. So I think that is some those are the
Mm,
areas I think where we definitely need to have more discussions, because there is more gray areas in there. And the third one would be like, where it's just a girl deciding, like if someone is just wants to be a single mother, let's say a single girl
mm,
wants to be a mother. um, these days we have got all the means, so you can be a mother. And then there is, I guess, because you don't have a partner, so there is one conflict gone. So if you just think technically, so you just decide, and then there is, of course, there can be a societal pressure of, in that case it can be the opposite of not
exactly.
to have, right? Because whether
Exactly.
you would be able to manage it, and how financial, more than financial, I think the societal pressure or the mental stability and everything. So I think that is also one scenario, because with day and as the days passes by, I think that is also becoming not common, I would say, but it is happening now, right? In this
Mm,
century it is happening, where girls or guys want to uh, be like a parent, right?
mm,
And
mm,
especially girls want to be a mother because it's their body. So a lot of
mm.
girls really want to be a mother once in
Yeah.
their life. So yeah, these are some of the scenarios that I thought of.
Like you've picked up very relevant questions and scenarios, Shrutamadi. We have a question. We have a comment from Deepak. Hi, Deepak. Good evening, and thank you for posting in. So Deepak says, "How is that even up for debate in 2021? This topic has patriarchy stamped all over it." So if you ask me, Deepak, that is exactly why we are trying to have a conversation and deflag the concept of patriarchy stamped over it. We're trying to take it through a woman's point of view and change the narrative around it. My guess, any answers for Deepak before we move on? Anyone would like to answer his question?
Well, I think you've answered it pretty well. That this is why we're talking, because no one is talking about it.
Mm. Right. Srigamani, moving on to your scenario, the last scenario that you mentioned is like a woman choosing to be a single mother. I
Yeah.
think that entails the maximum pressure, right? Because you have eliminated that
Yeah.
factor of having to consider your partner's choice of views, but you bring along the whole baggage of society, whole baggage of, tagging you down as someone who's just disrupting the societal architecture. How can a single woman
Yes.
become a single mother? That becomes loaded with questions and judgmentalism and all of that. So I think that is the most difficult scenario that we need to address. A single
Yes.
woman or a single man for that matter can also very well be a parent. Nobody's
Yeah.
stopping them, nobody should stop them, right? All right. uh, so yeah, go
Definitely.
on.
And also, like, I think in that, in the those sort of cases, having some examples in front of you always helps, because no one wants to be a pioneer, like, unless you are really a risk
Yeah.
taker. So let's say Sushmita Sen, if you are from a
uh,
South Asian country, we know. So we have seen her growth, and we have seen her adopting kids. So that definitely set an example for us, right?
exactly.
So in last couple of years we have seen more such examples of people becoming parent, like single parent, and then it actually shows you those options, that, oh,
Hmm.
okay, this also can happen. Because
Hmm.
a lot of times you might not be able to think of it, but someone
So that external factor forces you to think of it.
yeah, and also maybe someone you really admire.
Hmm.
So then you see that person taking that decision, and then you can think that, okay, maybe I can also take a decision. But again, I would always say, like, these are very important and serious decisions, so one should not take it in a whim
Exactly.
or something. So it should be thought through. Yeah.
Yeah. All
Coming
right.
back to actually Deepak's comment about patriarchy, right? So I would like to point out that it's not about whether it's a patriarchal society or a matriarchal society. because after living in Singapore, I've been observing many Chinese couples as well, right? And Chinese are predominantly matriarchal society, but over here also the pressure for bearing a child is equally there.
Mm, mm.
So it's not about patriarchy alone. I mean, the question, I mean, we are discussing on the right thing that the woman should have, I mean, the question is that should a woman choose to give or not give birth?
Exactly, exactly. Also, I have another question for all of you. So, when you mentioned Sushmita Sen and the likes of her, so is it possible that she was raised at that pedestal because no one batted an eyelid just because she was a celebrity, or do you think if she was a commoner, she would have had way more trouble? What do you guys think?
Well, I think she would have still had a few eyebrows raised for what she is going to choose or chosen. But
Mm,
because status wise, where she is, she could kind of close those chapters and put it aside and move on easily, as compared to someone who's a commoner and has to go through the whole society of why did you do this? How are you financially going to do this? All those questions, which she may skip or she can
mm,
skip compared to anyone else.
Yeah, and I think any pioneer like early starters in a certain field or certain thing always would have to face more sort of
backlash.
roadblocks,
Mm,
and that can make a person stronger in their decision, right? If they really believe in what they're doing, that can help them make that decision quicker as well. So
mm.
yeah.
All right. So Nova, moving on. So you are married. So do you feel that this is still a very gray area for married women in most of South Asia? And if this is a gray area, what do you think contributes to this big build, in your
It
opinion?
is definitely a gray area. I don't think being South Asian, it's a tag only there and you've moved out, or you're from Australia and it's not there. It is still there regardless of where you are. But I
Mm,
guess, yes, majority starts, and it's the thought process of the society that you're bought in. Society tells you to do stuff, or this one's doing this, that one's doing this, so
yeah.
you should be doing this. So this is where all it starts. And it's not just to, I mean, it's not there only just for kids. There are other things that evolve around it. But one topic of can you or can you not, as a woman, I don't think anyone thinks of a woman at the time. They just go ahead and pressure you for, yes, you should have kids. Your age is there. You're now married. It's that many years now, X number of years. You should have had it too already. All those sorts is literally tagged along
Mm,
as you move on. But taking back to the question, I think if it's for me, my body, my choice, if I want to do it or not. And then as much as I can stand for myself, I need my husband to stand with me. Otherwise, there's no point, because I can say X, Y, and Z, but there's no guarantee that will happen if I don't have the support. So you do need that support. Yes, I'll be the primary decision maker, but I need that secondary support to back me up,
mm.
just for the society.
Now, I'd like to stop you here for a quick question. You just said that you would like to have your husband's support, which is great, right? In an ideal situation, your husband supporting you, wonderful. What happens when you don't want to have a child, but your husband is insisting that you have a child? How would you tackle that situation then?
It's a situation that you'll both have to sit down and talk about, because as much as you're having a child, he's also a part of it and he's also having a child. So between the two of you, it's a 50-50 thing, and you have to both have your valid reasons of why or why not. My strongest point has been financial. I've always from day one thought, if financially X amount we have, I'm ready to have a child, because I don't want to bring another human being and go through all the sufferings that we're going
Yeah.
through. I rather, if I bring someone in, I would rather want everything perfect for them. Otherwise, what's the point? And then when it comes to a question of your aging and what happens if you can't have kids, which all the time happens, my straight answer is there's that many kids waiting out to be adopted. Why can't we just adopt one and have a family for someone? It just gives you, as much as you want a child, someone out there wants a family too. So end of the day, again, even if it's adopting or having a child of your own, it is 50-50. You and your
Yeah.
husband, or you or your partner, have to sit down and talk about and come to like a mutual conclusion for it.
Now, you've raised a brilliant point of adoptions. We'll come to that because I have something in mind for all of you. But I'll move on to Akshay. Akshay handling
Hmm.
the husband part of things. Um, you're married. You're the
Yeah.
husband side of the relationship. So I need your perspective on this as a man, as someone who's South Asian, and as a husband. So, do you really think that the woman should have the last say when it comes to birthing a child? And if so, if the woman really decides to have that decision, what is the contribution of the man in her life? And by man, I mean not only the husband, the brother, the father, the man figure. What should be the contribution? Your thoughts?
Okay. So, I mean, I'll come back to sort of the scenarios that Shritama posted, right? So, similarly, in my case, I would say there are scenarios in which the decision can be taken. So, for example, personally, what I would do is I would not force my wife to have a child just because
Mm,
I want it. It, and since we are an equal partnership, so it has to be a mutual decision or no decision at all, right? So whether she wants to have a child, if she wants it and I don't want it, then also it has to be mutually decided. It cannot be one person forcing the other
mm,
because apart from the physical tasks of it, there are also other things to take care, like Sonoma said, right? Financial liability is also there. I mean, some people might term this as bad thing, calling it a liability, but it is a responsibility and a liability both,
mm,
right? So then there are other factors to consider whether you can actually provide well enough for that child or no. So if I feel that I probably being the husband, if I feel that I'm not ready for it and I cannot provide for a good life for my child, so I would not agree to that,
mm,
even if
mm,
my wife might be ready, right? So it
mm,
has to be a totally mutual decision. And in the other case, wherein say if I want a child and my wife doesn't, then again, I would say I would respect her decision if she does not want it, because ultimately the physical aspect of it, she has to bear for much more than I have to.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll like to take this opportunity to ask you a very, very conventional question, something that I get asked all the time that, oh, if you don't have a child, how will you carry on the legacy of your family? So, Akshay, question to you. How do you think you will carry the legacy of Akshay Ahuja forward?
Okay. So the legacy of the family is not through blood. It's through the name, right?
Hmm,
So even if I plan not to have a child right now, and maybe 10 years down the line, I feel that the need for a child, and I go for the adoption way. It's all about how I bring up my child, how much
hmm,
connected he feels to me, rather than whether it's by blood or not. Because
exactly.
blood does not guarantee commitment, right? Or the love.
That and we have seen through them very famous examples. All right, Salia has a question. Good evening, Salia. So that is for you, Akshay. Do you know how many young people think like you?
I would say very
What
less.
percent?
Yeah. I mean, near in about in my age group and in my common social circle over here, and I have seen very less individuals having the similar mindset. Most of them already have kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that question, Salia. Moving on. So, I recently had this question out as a survey. Yeah? So, I am a part of many groups. So, I had this question out as a survey. The results came out divided, right? 50% of the data was toward women, that obviously the woman should have the final say. And the rest 50% was inclined toward what Akshay and Sunoba also mentioned, that both the men and the woman should have a joint decision. The reason being that most of the cases, the man provides the financial support. In your opinion, and by your I mean all of your opinions, how normal or skewed is this concept that a man is there just to provide financial support? Akshay, I'll start with you, then Sunoba and Shritamadi.
So again, probably my views differ from most of the general public,
Hmm.
right? So I think both partners are equally responsible because both, like in my case, me and my wife both are earning partners, right? So we both contribute to our family income,
Hmm.
and so the responsibility also falls equally on both of us in
Yeah.
terms of finances as well.
Hmm. No, perfect. Sunova, your
Well,
thoughts?
it depends on what situation is it. I can only now talk about my situation. So when I moved to Australia, my then husband, like boyfriend, was in New Zealand. So when we got married, he moved here for me. Now, when he moved, obviously he didn't have a job at the time. Straight away, he moved. So between the two of us, I was the working one, and between the two of us, we were happy, even though he didn't have a job straight away and I was working. We were fine.
Hmm.
Then moving on, he found a job which was better earning than I had, and then I moved on to a newer job. Then I had a better earning. So between the two of us, it never was a thing that I wouldn't. I like as a man, my husband was the only income person that has to look after the financial. He has the burden. It's always been this is the house. This is how we have to run it. Whoever gets the most, well, that's good. But as long as we're both doing
Exactly.
our parts,
Yeah.
rather than just forcing the other one to actually do it. And now, when I say forcing, I can always say, "Oh, I want to just sit at home and not work because you're the man. You have to run the house."
Hmm.
Yes, I can do that. Society will actually applause for it. But then, how is it fair on the man working? Why should he take all the burden? I mean, we're not in back in 1950s anymore.
But
It's
I'll stop you here. What if it's the other way around? What if the man tells you that you don't need to work, stop working, be at home, look after the child, I'm here to provide you the money. Why are you working? Then how does the situation turn around?
that's when you then start the discussion of are you sure you can do this? Now with COVID, I lost my job, my husband's still working, touch wood. It's more like this has now come to a point that he's now looking after the house financially because I lost my job. But again, there's no how do I say it? There's no pressure of I can't do this. I only want to pay half of the house. You have to do
Mm-hmm.
the rest. There's it's not there. And I'm pretty sure if it was the other way around, I still had my job, he would have lost it. We would have still been on the same page of I'll still try
Sharing
looking
it.
for another job. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Sunoba. Shritamadi, your thoughts, and then we'll hop onto the question that Saleh posted.
Yeah, I think your question, like whether it's normal or skewed, it is extremely skewed in my view, because I agree with both Akshay and Sunova. Like, it's not about like who is earning the money. It might be like at certain points of time you are earning and your partner is not earning, or it can be the other way around, right? And money is not the only thing. Like there are other emotional support and everything else that comes in a relationship or in a marriage. So I think if someone says that, then definitely they're not thinking straightly in a straight manner, and then obviously it can, like in that sort of scenario, if the guy thinks that way, there is a chance that the guy will force it on his wife or partner,
Mm.
because this is if this is how someone thinks, there is a definite danger over there. So
And what I figured out from the survey was, sometimes emotional dependence is also important than financial dependence, right? You need that
uh,
emotional support because I'm going through pregnancy, not me, a woman is going through a pregnancy and she needs that hormonal changes, whatnot is happening, right? So money is not always a game changer every time. So you need someone who understands what you go through. I think for
yeah.
me, that would be the number one priority.
And I've seen like people, like I've seen pregnant women where uh, emotional support is the most important factor there, right? I mean, even if you have the financial support, if you don't have the right emotional support around, that can make your life really hell if someone is pregnant
Exactly.
and,
Yeah.
going through that process.
Yeah. A question that Saleh posted was, what about women who don't work at an office? Guys, thoughts, feedback?
Well,
Anyone?
it doesn't have to be someone working at the office. Someone can also work from home and do other bits and pieces, businesses. So many people do, well, so many ladies do beauty business from home. that just helps them have the extra cash. So it doesn't have to be someone who's working out from office has to do a proper 9 to 5. I've always done a shift work. I've never done a 9 to 5. So I don't know what classifies as an office.
Relevant point. Yeah. All right. Anyone would want to add anything, or should we just?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's not about like, even if the partner is not working, right? It still does not, the other partner does not have any leverage over the other just because
Exactly.
he's earning, or
Hmm,
he or she is earning, that their decision should overpower the other one's choice.
hmm. Valid point. Wonderful. All right. The next part that I have for all of you is something that I personally have a lot of conviction in, and I don't understand this often, so I'll put that on. All right. I have a comment from Shritamadi, your mom. Auntie, hello, and thank you for watching it. She says emotional support is more important than financial support. Of course. Yes. Absolutely. Totally.
I think
200%.
our moms know the best about that, right? They have been providing us with emotional support throughout the years, even if
Yes.
a lot of them might not be financially earning. So, yeah.
All right. The next thing is something that I have a lot of conviction. So this is, we're trying to kind of gauge the balance between natural birth versus adoption. Something that Sonova mentioned very early on. So why are we still so agnostic towards the whole idea of a willful adoption, right? Because by willful I mean is adoption even today is seen as something as a second option. Only when the couple cannot reproduce of their own do they look towards adoption. Why are we still so anemic towards adopting as the first priority? I'll start with Shritamadi, Sunova, and Akshay.
It's again that bloodline thing, right? I have spoken to people about this and I've seen that most of the people still think that way. And see, there's nothing wrong in it, right? I can't really judge that. If someone thinks that way, it's their decision, their baby. If they want to have a baby of their own, it's fine. But definitely, I mean, I am a big champion of this, and I think this world is anyways the population is growing in sometimes, right? So rather than adding to it, why not take care of the people who are already in there and who are underprivileged, who need care? So in any form, it actually, I mean, if you have the means, then you adopt. If you don't have the means or the right level of support, you can help in other ways, right? Like uh, through donations or
Mm,
sponsoring trials. There are so many options available, and so many good NGOs are working towards this. I know. I think adoption. I I wouldn't know a lot about it, but I think adoption may be a complicated process. That is why also some people say that they don't want to get into it.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, so that's my thought. But definitely, I'm all for adoption or like taking care of underprivileged or like children who are already there but need a home
Yeah.
or
Akshay,
care.
your thoughts.
Okay, to actually answer your question, why is there an animosity towards this, and why do people prefer to opt for other ways before moving on to this option? I think some of it goes back to the basic human instincts, right?
Mm,
So if it's our genetics that are going on, passing on, then the characteristics would be similar to us. If it is somebody else's genes, might not things might not work out. That's the thought process of many
mm,
people. And so that is why, even if they are not able to conceive naturally, they then first try for IVF or other options. And when they fail in that, also, only then and even after that, like most of them still give up after that. And if they are still want a child, only then they think about adoption.
But actually, I have a question here. That is something that I also struggle with. That you mentioned about bloodline, right? And then
Hmm.
early on, you also mentioned about positive parenting.
Hmm.
How does bloodline weigh over? Like you might have your own child out of your own legacy and whatnot, but that child might turn out to be a completely opposite person, right?
Exactly.
We have
That's what.
seen these cases that
Right.
a congressman's son or daughter might not always be a good or a better congressman or a woman, right? So
Right.
why don't we stress more on a better parenting process rather than forcing ourselves to go through bloodline and whatnot?
Yeah, as I said, right, it goes back to the basic human instincts or animal instincts. So that's the thought process that genetics would be might be better. But once they move over from this basic thought process and think logically and realistically, then probably they can understand, yes, that parenting is what makes the person better.
But will that not be too late when they realize that, oh, we kind of did a bad job at parenting, but it's our own child?
I think it is, but this realization will come over the years or
Hmm.
over generations, I would say.
Yeah. So now, what are your thoughts?
It's like you said, it's not the second option, it's not even the third option. Adopting is like the 10th or the maybe 100th option after they've tried their own naturally, and they've tried, I don't know, IVF, IUIs, whatever it is, 10 times, and spend maybe more than $10,000, $20,000 already on it, and then they would go for the adoption, which will be the cheaper way of $2,000 maybe. But it comes down to it's gonna have our blood. We're just moving forward. Now I don't know how good is the bloodline. Then it's worth investing in that way. Otherwise, why not adopt? We're not Ashwarya Rai. We're not going for adoption.
Al- Also, guys, a quick question before like we move on. Why don't we start thinking about sustainability? Like we all saw with COVID, what happened. Earth is really degrading, in all honesty, right? Why don't we think from that perspective that what kind of a future are we leaving the kids into? So instead of adding more, why shouldn't we give a better future to the children who've already arrived? Why is no one thinking on that line? What do you think? What do you guys think?
I think the
Anyone?
opposite happened, right? You just have too many COVID babies coming up. So it's
Exactly.
I'm a bit sickly here. A lot of my friends are going to kill me if they hear this, but that's what happened. It's the basic
I
instinct.
totally agree. I have seen couples who've had twins before they had another child. So number is increasing and increasing. I don't know what they are thinking, but I am concerned about sustainability, the kind of earth we are living in. Like we all know the glaciers are melting each year. So are people not thinking about the world and planet Earth on a bigger picture? So Nobha and Akshay, quickly your thoughts on that.
I think it's the society you have to think about first before you even move on to bigger picture. So you're stuck in that little world first to conquer before you're like heading out.
Yeah, I mean, I use this as an excuse sometimes to give to my relatives whenever they ask me, when are you having a kid? I always say them, there's already so much population there. Why add more?
But you know what? When I talk to kind of prospective alliance I've met on matrimonial websites, and one of the very common conventional questions in the pretext of getting to know me is, oh, what are your views on having a family? And I said, look, I'm very concerned about the kind of world I'm leaving them, and so I'm all for adoption, and I get rejected. They don't see my point. They don't see the concern that I have for the bigger picture. And then that sets me thinking that are we actually thinking in the right direction? Having a child is that important that you are willing for them to inhale polluted air, take in water that is chemically degraded. Like, what are we thinking? Shitamandi, you had something to share?
People don't think about the big picture. Most of the people. I'm not. I shouldn't say everyone, but when it comes to these people, no, people don't think about the bigger picture at all. That's the reason they only think about adoption when none of the other options work, right? So it's just to help them. It's not to help the baby actually. Like that's how it starts. Of course, then they start to love the baby, I'm sure, when they adopt. But I'm just saying, that's what I feel like. It definitely seems bizarre to me. I always
Hmm.
feel that am I the odd one out here? Why is not everyone thinking about this? But yeah, I think and other thing, this related to bloodline, like when you were saying, like you have the same sort of nature, your kid. I think another very important thing is looks. People really give a lot of importance to looks and the color of the skin, a lot of things.
Oh,
So, where they say, oh, he looks like the dad's family, looks like the. we still hear the same sort of dialogue. So that is, people wouldn't maybe admit that because everyone wants to be politically correct maybe these days. But it is there at the back of your mind. I mean, yeah, I definitely think that is definitely there. Because I've seen that conversation, heard that conversation from close quarters.
Uh, Mehek has something to say. Mehek, hi Mehek. Thank you for watching. She says, "What an important and insightful discussion. I love the topics that you have on here, Salia, of course. Salia being Salia, wonderful topics always. Thank you, Mehek. It's a pleasure that you liked it." And she also says, "How scary is it to have a child and not be able to provide a world that's just fair and equitable? Yes. Why aren't people thinking about this stuff? What's the priority?" Meg, we are as confused as you are. We don't know why people are not thinking. Any word from my guest, Akshay, Sunobha, Shritamadi, anything to add on to
Yeah, I
Mehek's?
would like to add this. So I think now that we have raised this topic, right, it might spark this thought process in some people. Because you see people evolve over time. And for example, uh, SARS was not a pandemic, whereas COVID-19 is. It took people time to realize that, even though the number of deaths in SARS were also much more, I
Yeah.
think much more than COVID-19 even, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, as I said earlier, it would take probably years or generations for people to realize these things.
But how that is my concern, guys. What do you mean by generations? We get reports every year that Antarctica is gradually melting down. I was reading a report sometime last year that Venice
It's
is sinking, right? Venice is actually sinking by centimeters, not that it's gradually sinking.
Yeah,
When
but
we
the
yeah,
thought
go on.
process is uh, if the Antarctica is melting down, it's not you who's sinking, right? It's not your house that's getting submerged. That's the thought process of the people in common.
Yeah.
So that's why I said it would take much more years. Maybe when Earth has degraded even uh, more, only then people will realize it.
All right. Navneeta has something. Hi, Navneeta. Thank you for watching. She says, "I agree. The issue to debate should be what all we can do when women are not able to lead their full, authentic lives with all human rights. Not should women have." Fair point. Any thoughts on that one? Anyone?
Okay, so I think she's added some further comments.
Yeah.
On,
Incentive have to because it's
yeah,
impacting the economy. Well, yeah, that could be possible. Yes. Someone, Shitamadi, were you adding something?
no, I think I agree with Navneeta. Definitely, uh, that is our main goal, so that every woman, every I think every man and woman, I would say, like everyone should be able to live their life the way they want to legally, and also like without harming any other people. So
Hmm.
so yeah, I think that's why, like, yeah, giving birth and all these things have to be like informed decision,
Yeah.
not just you just jump into it. Yeah.
And I
Also,
think she
based,
raised
yeah.
a really good point about many countries are
Hmm.
encouraging people to have more kids. So yeah, that depends from country to country, right? And
Hmm.
for them, they are also not looking at the bigger picture. Probably they are only looking at their economic growth.
Mm, mm. And
So
also
if
because
they,
every country has a different demographic structure, right? Like if you consider our country, India or Pakistan, any South Asian country, our demographics is way off the chart. Even if government imposes a two-child policy, I don't know how long will it take for the curve to go down with regards to the population. But in some countries, you need to kind of, boost people to have kids because they have most of the older generation. They don't have the younger generation growing as much. So I think it depends from, as long as my limited knowledge tells me, it depends from country to country. All right. I'm mindful of the time, guys. So one last thing, I'll just take this as a closing, wrapping up point. All right, Mehak says, Mehak, I think, is responding to Navneeta that I'm not sure how I feel about government imposed policies, but I wonder if it's a conversation on education, body rights, sustainability. Yes, sustainability on top of everything, I would say. Thanks, Mehak. All right, question to the panel. Have you seen some effective campaigns to support more critical conversations around family planning, contraception, etc., etc.? Panel, please answer.
Not to that extent. Not really at all.
I think
I've
there
seen
are.
some hoardings around here in Singapore for family planning, but it's more to encourage
Yeah.
people to have children.
Is it because I think Akshay in Singapore, like Singaporeans, I think there is a trend there that not to have babies because people are very work focused. Like I lived in Singapore for some time, so I used to hear that. Is that a
Sorry,
true?
I could not hear your
Shritamadi, your
question.
mic, yeah.
Yeah, can you
Uh,
hear me now?
Yeah,
Yeah. So what I was saying, like, is it because in Singapore, like Singaporeans, especially, they don't, they focus on their career, so that's why they don't want to have babies. So I lived in Singapore for some time, so I used to hear that. Is
I
that
would say it's
why the government is promoting child like family planning?
it's a very mixed demographic over here. So I've seen many millennials and I mean people around my age who are not even married and also on the other end of the spectrum, I also see people who already have like 3 or 4 kids.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's very hard to say.
The population
uh,
also matters, right? I mean, like in Australia, the population compared to the size of the country is much less. So probably then you don't become, yeah, that's what
um,
one probably.
Navneeta says absolutely change happens at the individual level and it should be bottom up. And exactly, Navneeta, I can't agree more. And that is something I was about to say to. She also says sustainability is dependent on capitalist and capitalist dictated government. Non-government policies, therefore, civil society engagement is critical. Agreed. And
Fair.
something to Meg, Meg, I've seen a few hoardings, as Akshay mentioned, not too detailed into campaigns, but again, those campaigns can only affect you on a social level, right? You can see them, you can view them. How, what you need to make sure, anybody for that matter, is what you take away from that campaign into your personal life. Are you willing to take that change into you? So that's the thing. Navneeta says there are so many factors: individual, family, community, religion, politics. You name them, and they are factors. You name them. All right, guys, we're mindful of the time. One last thing to wrap this up. So, where does the buck end in this debate? Right? Coming back to the main question, who should actually have the final say? Society, religion, government, social structure, or the person giving birth? Who should have the final say? Let's just end this with a one liner.
I'm
Sonova.
going to stand up for myself.
I would say the couple, let them decide.
All right. Shritamati, your vote is like, it counts, right? Which way you roll.
I would say 60% woman, 40% man. So it's huge work.
It's our body. Oh, yeah. So we should have
Yeah,
the
yeah, that's
first
right.
choice.
That-
Yeah. So ideally it should be 50%, but 10% I'm just giving extra to the woman with their body.
Does my vote count as a moderator?
Yeah, go for it.
Yes.
I would say it's the woman. Definitely, is the woman. Again, because she goes through those 9 months and
Every
how many
stages.
days,
Yeah.
hormonal changes and everything. So it's the woman who has to face it, right? All right, guys, that was a wonderful conversation, a very revelating conversation. We've talked about society, government, bloodline, lineage, climate change, whatnot. So this was like a multifaceted conversation, and I have you guys and obviously Salia to thank. Thank you for joining in, and I hope our listeners have something effective and important to take away from it. And for all the listeners and audiences watching us, thank you for tuning in and appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for the invitation.
Thank
We have
Thanks for
one
the
last
invite.
question, guys. One last question.
in this.
Shritamadi's mom has asked, in case of single mother,
When
Shritamadi,
is
you answer
that?
the question.
When is actually the mother?
Definitely, there's no
I think
question about it,
there's
right?
no, yeah, there's no conflict then, right? It's
Yeah.
100%.
No, no, I have something to. In case it's a single mother, I think 90% support has to be coming from the mother's parents.
Family.
Mother.
If they support her, Nobody can touch her.
Yeah.
Like, I have to mention here at this point, my mother is very vocal about me adopting a child. More than me, she is vocal about it. So I know if she supports me tomorrow, nobody in the society can touch me. So,
Yeah.
auntie, in case of single mother, the mother's parent.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'll end the
Okay.
conversation here. It was lovely having you. Have a great night. Thank you so much for joining.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.